Outlook. With Lisa Kelly and Louie DePalma.
Welcome to the Outlook with Lisa and Louie. Good to see you, Lisa.
Good to see you, Louie.
Today's theme is the tools we love.
Yeah, there's so many great tools, even information out there that can help us, improve our businesses, become more productive and more profitable.
You know, whether you're looking for information about the AODA and the various standards under that piece of legislation, such as the customer service standard, for instance. There's the transportation standard. There's the design of public spaces. There's
employment.
There's absolutely, Lisa, key. That's a key one.
Absolutely.
The employment standard or the information and communication standard. All good tools. There's a lot of resources that have been developed for businesses to access, so you don't have to go it alone. You can actually get that information, and you can get that.
Discoverability.
.network.
Yes, .network.
Thank you.
We can actually, when we're choosing or designing our tools, so whether we're taking something that already exists or we're designing something new, we want to make sure they're accessible, that they work not only to the benefit of us as the employers, but we want to make sure they work to the benefit of all the employees within the organization.
No doubt about it, Lisa. Becoming more inclusive certainly gives a company a competitive edge in the marketplace.
Yeah, so in this session, we're going to learn a lot about some of the tools that we like, that are out there and we think can help you build a more inclusive business.
And this takes us to this episode's hot topic.
Design. Design that positively impacts the user's experience. So a couple concepts that we want to delve into here first. First is usability. So usability is really concerned with, is this design effective? Is it efficient? Is it satisfying? And of course we want all of our products, services, policies to be usable. But usability doesn't really focus on the needs of the widest range of users. And that's people on the edges, people with disabilities, people who experience the world in different ways. So what we want to do is design accessible experiences, product, services. So we want to make this, available and usable to the widest range of people out there. Now, the way we can do that is use really great design thinking. Inclusive design thinking. And design thinking is this idea that we can draw on the full range of human experience to design products, services that work for everybody. There's three principles kind of involved in that. The first is, who's not currently included when we thought about this policy, this product, this service? The second is, we solve for one, somebody on the edges. So if you think of a bell curve, and we design for people on the edges, we're still going to capture everybody in the center of that bell curve, but now we're also, at the 20% on either end of the bell curve. So we want to solve for one, extend to many. And the third concept is we learn from diversity. We learn from different people's experiences. So we need to have those diverse experiences reflected in our workforce in order to drive the innovation we're talking about. I'll give you some practical examples of that. Closed captionings. All right, when we think of closed captioning, even 10 years ago, it was kind of an unusual concept, and we might sign up and get somebody to have closed captions during a meeting. But we use closed captions all the time. They were designed for people who experience the world differently, but we use them if we're in an airport and it's noisy and we're looking at the screen and there's closed captions. We use closed caption or texting if we're on the subway. We use them in noisy environments like a restaurant. So they don't just work for people who hear differently, they work for everyone. Another example, noise canceling headsets. That's on the other end. Perhaps somebody's very acutely sensitive to noise. Well, we want to design something that can cut down that noise. So think an open concept environment. The noise canceling headsets might work for somebody who's neurodiverse or somebody who is experiencing mental health condition, but they also work for everybody else in that open concept environment. Providing information in multiple formats. So large print, small print, multiple languages, you name it. Perhaps we want to distribute it electronically sometimes, or we want to have signage around in Braille and also written out. Voice to text, text to voice, training. Are we delivering training in a way that works for the different ways people interact with information? Think about flexible policies and flexible practices. So can we have people start at staggered times? Can we allow them to do a 4-day work week instead of a 5? Are we allowing for people to come in and interview in a different way that better highlights their skills and abilities? These are all great examples of how design can positively impact our business. Our feature segment this episode was divided into 2 separate conversations. I was joined by Tara Connolly, the Assistant Director of Research and Development at the READ Initiative, Carleton University. Louie, tell me about your conversation.
Lisa, I had the pleasure of speaking with Beth Robertson. She's the Senior Research Associate Inclusion, Education and Skills Manager for the Council on Inclusive Work Environments and the Conference Board of Canada.
Let's take a look.
Thanks for joining us today, Tara. I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit about the READ Initiative and what you do there.
Yeah, sure. So the READ Initiative is at Carleton University. READ stands for Research, Education, Accessibility, and Design. I work there as the Assistant Director in Research and Development. So it's really a pleasure to be able to work through Carleton, because Carleton has a real long tradition of making sure that that continually evolving space around accessibility. They've done a ton of work, and many spaces at Carleton, including READ, do some great work that is accessibility related. As a matter of fact, Carleton has almost a coordinated strategy the integrated strategy for accessibility. So my work at READ is to work with a really great team of folks who we get to ideate and develop and design projects that will increase accessibility in a real diversity of spaces and ways. So the variety of projects we might have can include really research-oriented pieces, applied research with community, even development of training resources that rise out of potential needs from community. And we really like to take that knowledge and make sure that it can be applied out there. That's really important to us. Another piece that's extremely important to the folks at READ is that, each of our projects, all the work that we do is infused with those perspectives and voices of that lived experience of having to navigate accessibility related barriers, such as, stigma or within policy and practices, attitudinal pieces, even the built environment, all of those things. So I'm very lucky. I get to work on all sorts of different types of projects related to any type of accessibility you could think of, really. From the social pieces to technology to looking at post-secondary, all sorts of different places, and employers, as you well know.
I do know, because we had the pleasure last year of working together on a tool that I think is one of my favorite from last year and this year. And I'm wondering if you can tell me a little bit about the Able to Learn project.
Yeah, absolutely. So that came out of one of READ's earlier projects, the David Sionley Initiative. Within that project, that was geared to looking at what were some of the practices that would be extremely helpful that we could all engage in as a collective to support that transition for post-secondary students, in particular with disabilities, into the employment setting. And so that was a very large project with all sorts of moving pieces. One of those pieces were to really explore with employers those employment settings and how accessible they are for students who are ready to engage in employment. So from that, we realized, our partners said, hey, you know what? There's an opportunity here to really address a gap, because it wasn't so much that employers were not interested. They knew the why of tapping into this talent pool, but they were really struggling with the how. And the opportunities that our partners saw from that work in the David C. Onley Initiative was that particularly smaller and medium-sized businesses could really use a learning resource to help them on their journey in developing their accessibility confidence, essentially. So that's how Tap into Talent became a next kind of piece that we wanted to look at.
So Tool can encompass a lot of different media, a lot of different approaches. Tell me about the tool and what it actually looks like.
Yes, absolutely. Well, the output of the Able to Tap into Talent tool is really a comprehensive online learning series. That's what the tool generally is. And it consists of 4 courses with 3 modules in each course, and that a learner can kind of take from awareness to action. So that was a big piece for all of our partners, and you folks were one of our partners, our participating partners who were really providing a lot of insights to this. We really wanted this to be something that was nimble and useful for, we designed it with adult learners in mind, knowing that employers would be utilizing it to sort of upskill. So it had to be something that was engaging. It had to be something that, they could spend their time and use in a variety of different ways. So because it's designed with that flexibility in mind, I think that really is what allows it to be something that can be used for a diversity of types of work environments. So whether you're still in a hybrid environment where you're online still, or you can utilize it in your lunch and learns, that's what was meant to happen. We had a really great team working on this, and we had our team lead, Ingrid Argyle, really brought a lot of stakeholders together. She did a fantastic job of really pulling in all the insights from different types of employers too, so that they could sort of inform the tool in that way. And of course, as I talked about before with Reed, we made sure that the content in the tool was really informed as well by folks with lived experience, and that they could share not only their insights and expertise, but their stories as well. Because one thing I would say about adult learners is that we really resonate with the aha moments. Those are the things that stick with us. And while we definitely have an underlying pedagogy, if you will, of what we are teaching in the course, it's really more about people getting some aha moments to start making some real change in their environments, and realizing that they can. So the course content really addresses disability and inclusion awareness. So starting with that awareness piece to give a little bit of a foundation to understand the parts to accessibility that are important. I would say that one thing that came to our minds was that employers sometimes would say to us, well, we're not actually seeing that many folks with disabilities or with lived experience of disability in our settings. And so even just giving the concept of there are both visible and non-visible disabilities at play. And when you look at, what makes up a workforce and what creates an environment, there are many, many different lived experiences. We also wanted to do that awareness piece around, meeting one person who happens to identify in a particular way doesn't mean you've met everybody who identifies that way. So we will often say that, if you've met one person on the spectrum, you've met one person on the spectrum. And while there's some common threads of experience amongst people who navigate barriers and have all these, when we're talking about even neurodivergent thinkers, all sorts of different lived experiences, they're not representative of everybody. And so really giving employers a chance to soak into that. And then we looked right into accessible recruitment practices and hiring, onboarding practices, all of those pieces where you could really go and tap into that talent and some of the nuances that are really important. For instance, we know that sometimes people will self-select out because a job description isn't really about what the core of the work is, but it's that giant wish list of everything that needs to happen for a job. So then we will sometimes find that our students or other folks will say, that's not something I could do. Right? When it's, in fact, the majority of the world couldn't do it based on this magical unicorn that has been described in a job description. So understanding how to create.
Cow.
Yes, there you go, right? And then also even different practices such as giving insight into what the daily life at work might be like, providing a video of a day in the life, interviewing some of your staff around what's it like to work here, building familiarity about a setting is a great way to be recruiting. That's a great recruiting tool, particularly for folks who might not have had the chance to experience those types of settings before, but who have got all the skills that you're going to want for that position.
So where do we find this tool? How do people, get started?
Great. Thanks for asking that, because that's exactly what we want. We want people using the tool. It's free. It's a beginning conversation. It's a catalyst conversation that we're hoping will inspire them to go and learn more afterwards as well. They can find it at www.able2.ca/learn.
So thank you, Tara, for creating this incredible tool and for coming on today to talk to us about it.
You're most welcome. Thank you so much for having us here to share, because that's what we're really all about, is making sure that these tools get used and can help create some more accessible spaces. So thanks again.
All right, we'll see you soon.
Yeah. Take care.
Beth, thanks so much. Can you give us a real life example of a tool or a resource that you're really seeing as making a difference in the workplace?
A real life example is a tool that the conference board has developed. It's a resource that draws together a number of different pieces of legislation and tips and resource and employment standards in respect to the Ontario legislation in relation to accessibility, the AOIDA. And that's a tool that I think that's been heavily referenced. It's now a little dated. It's been there for a few years, but it's still being, I think, heavily used.
Great tool, Beth. I use it all the time. I reference it all the time. You're speaking to the Employment Standards Reference Guide under the AODA, the Ontario legislation, and it's up on our website at discoverability.network.ca. So what's your favorite tool for persons with disabilities that have made a difference in the workplace? The reference guide is a great one. Can you describe another one for us?
A tool that has just come out and that you wouldn't immediately think it was applicable maybe to persons with disabilities is a tool called Opportune Next. It was developed by our economics research team, and it is a tool that helps facilitate job transitions for individuals. And so you put in your role and skill set and maybe educational background, and it will provide you with various different options that you could do.
You mentioned it's for persons with disabilities. It probably could be used for any employee in the workplace. And is it specifically related to the changing environment of how long an individual stays at a job these days?
60 years ago, 40 years ago, you would land in a job and you would probably stay at that job for a really long time, maybe for your whole entire career. That is not the way things are now. People make a variety of different transitions throughout their life. I can say for myself, I'm 40 years old and I've already made 3 or 4 career transitions. This really, Opportune Next really kind of acknowledges that and tries to give people kind of concrete paths that they can take. And it allows individuals to be more independent, to really drive their career in a way that they otherwise may not have been aware of.
What else do you have on the horizon, Beth? Lots of great things in the hopper there. What else can you share with us?
And so right now we're actually in the throes of kind of really developing Opportune Next so that it becomes more kind of user friendly and applicable to a variety of different people. In particular, one of the projects we're working on is related directly to job transitions for persons with disabilities. And we're pairing kind of the data coming out of Opportune Next with a number of other data points, like the Automation Vulnerability Index coming from the innovation team, considerations like geography, desirability, education, upskilling requirements, and again, adapting this for the real life situations and circumstances of Canadians with disabilities. This makes it and especially this becomes much more important, especially in light in our research. One thing that did come to light is that Canadians with disabilities, many people are working within very precarious, low security, high risk automation jobs. And so this tool And the way we're adapting it, our hope is to help change that and move us forward so that Canadians with disabilities can continue to contribute meaningfully to the workplace and can actually kind of grow their careers and direct their careers in the workplace.
So that automation index really is a planning tool that helps us better understand where we are today and where maybe we should be going to in the future.
Yeah, yeah, and it's very geographically related as well. So it measures from a geographical standpoint where different sectors are in terms of across the country of whether or not they are at high risk to automation or not. And that becomes really, really valuable to apply to job transitions. We don't want to be recommending transitions to one precarious job to another, for instance.
Yes.
Looking to find talent? Let us help. Seize the opportunity to advance your business. Check out discoverability.network and sign up today.